Watch for the great block by Keith Byars on Pepper Johnson. Bam! Right there. Byars just nailed it.
He's Dayton's own Keith Byars. It's the Keith Byars Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken on Dayton's home of the Ohio State Buckeyes, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Welcome. You listen to the Keith Byars Radio Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Feel free to call in. I'm having a technical problem. The number is not coming up. What's the number, Justin? With my computer here.
We got 518-1410. 518-1410 is the number.
That's the number to call. You can also hit me on Twitter, aka B41, at my Twitter handle. And we feel free to talk about all the things related to sports that's on your mind. Wow, I can't believe it's Wednesday, and it's in the middle of we're almost at the middle of August. Time is flying, and I say this. Sometimes it gets to be cliche when I say, "Oh, this is my favorite time of the year. This is my favorite time of the year," and it's always my favorite time of the year when it's football is about to start. But this time of the year, right here, right now, training camp. 2 days, not my favorite time of the year. So mark that. I didn't say it's my favorite time of the year. This was never been one of my favorite times of the year. I hate training camp. I hated 2 days. It was a necessary evil. It's like when you talk to guys in the military, they try, oh man, that boot camp. Ooh, that's something I'll never forget. But when you're in the military, you go through boot camp once in your whole military career, whether you serve 4 years, 1 year, 25 years, 30 years, or a lifetime. You only go through boot camp once. Being a football player, you go through boot camp every year. Every year you do 2 days. It's like, and granted, times have changed. It's much more, simpler. I won't say easier, even though I really mean easier, but it's simpler these days, with a 2-day practice, but it's still no fun. And I remember, in high school, practicing twice a day, and we had pads twice a day. So we would do it, air out our shoulder pads and our practice jersey in the morning, and usually kept our pants on. And we would, take a nap in the locker room, grab something to eat, come back, and just bond with your teammates. So hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours later, whatever it was in between practices, you done dry it off, and then it's time to put that wet equipment back on and go out and practice again. I'm talking about as far as high school. So now I get to Ohio State, and anticipating, here we are for 2 days again, and now I'm like, wow, man, I'm at a big time university. They give us stuff to practice in both practices, and my first 2 a day, I went through the morning practices. It was nice and sweaty. Then they said, we have a mesh bag in your locker. You put your socks and your skivvies and your T-shirts in there, and we'll wash them, and we'll have a fresh pair of dry socks and underwear and jockstrap and all that stuff. Just sitting in your locker for when you come back in the afternoon. You don't have to worry about wearing wet stuff like you did in high school and before. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Well, lo and behold, after my first practice, I forgot to put my wet stuff in a laundry bag and throw it in a hamper so they can wash it. So when I come back for the afternoon, my wet stuff was hanging in my locker, still with sweat and from the morning practice. And somebody told me, man, just go to the equipment room and they'll give you a fresh one. I go to the equipment manager. His name was John Bozick, God rest his soul. John Bozick was an old, cranky guy. He was one of the nicest guys you ever meet when you get to meet him. So I went and told him, hey, can you give me another bag? I forgot. I forgot to throw my dirty laundry in there. And he proceeded to cuss me out from A to Z, called me everything but a child of God. And he was like, oh, you're prima donna? And you think this is high school? Ain't your mom and daddy? Nobody gonna clean up after you? He was going off for me. And I was about to, go back at him, but I was wrong. I turned away, grabbed my wet stuff, and I'm like, well, in high school, I'm used to wearing wet, dirty stuff, anyway, in between for 2-day practice, so it ain't no big deal. I walked away. I took about 10 paces away from the equipment when he reached out and yelled, "Byars, come here, come back here." I come back, and then he said, "Here you go. Don't let it happen again." And thank you. And I walked to give me clean stuff. And because I took that good cussing from him that day, we became the best of friends. He said, "I was testing you. I heard a lot about you, but I couldn't believe you made that mistake and didn't, bring your laundry in there." And so I was upset. And the Ray, you said, "You must come from a really good family to really take that without going back at me." I said, "Man, I was wrong." And it's a lesson I learned. And from that point on, the rest of the guys, they saw I was a good gentleman. Bozick likes you because he was the same. He was equal opportunity to get you. It didn't matter who you was. I mean, he would yell at Earl Bruce. He probably went at it with Woody Hayes. He'd been there, since the Woody Hayes era. So he was a long standard bearer. But, lessons that you learn along the way. And, I was telling young guys, you're never too big to humble yourself. Even especially, admit when you're wrong. And I was wrong. I didn't appreciate him cussing at me. But that relationship, went on for the next 30 years and until he passed away. And every time I would come back to Columbus, I would make sure I make it over to the equipment room and sit down and sit back and kick a chair up. And we would sit back and talk about the good old days. So, and so I'm starting this show, thinking about, nostalgia. The two-a-days and all that stuff. And I mean, especially here locally, all the two-a-days practices are started on the high school level. And, your parents are dropping your kids off and, they're making memories that's going to last them, a lifetime. I mean, so that's something I just thought of on the way here, driving in my car, riding by, seeing people, practicing. Even though it's not my favorite time of the year, but when I was in high school, it was a fun time of the year because, hey, not only am I out here sweating, so are my friends. And so that's that bonding that you go through. So like come February, January, the playoffs, and February, the Super Bowl, the two teams that are playing in the Super Bowl and the teams that made the playoffs, they're going to reflect on moments like today. Oh, it's hot and muggy out there. This is when we put in all that hard work and sweat and tears, blood, sweat, and tears, for moments like this. So you have to pay that payment, pay that price, every day so that you have something to draw back on when times get tough. And times will get tough, that's for sure. No matter what NFL team you follow, no matter what college team you follow or whatever high school team you follow, you're going to always be, tough times. It's how you respond to those tough times. And when you go through two-a-day practices, like right now, that's how you form those bonding moments, and with that being said, so I want to talk about a variety of subjects. Olympics are over now. What do you think about the Olympics? Was it everything you thought?
Real quick, could I jump in real quick?
Certainly.
I only had a quick question. I'm only interrupting because it ties in with what you were talking about right now with the two-a-days and stuff. So we had Kirk Herbstreit on yesterday, and he was talking about, he remembers memories from this time around, two-a-days back in Centerville back in the day. And he was talking about how, just like you explained, that his two-a-days, it was boot camp. He said that their coach, of course, legendary coach, he was a military guy and treated practice like military boot camp, and that's how they got ready for the season. And they just felt like, hey, we were never the biggest, strongest, fastest team, but we felt we could go at anybody. But he also said there's a lot of things that they did that you can't do in football today. Now, was there some things in two-a-days that you remember from back in the day that clearly kids today, that coaches couldn't get away with today? Just again, not that it's a softer time, but again, just more be more sensitive to some of the stuff that you guys do in practice with being more aware of heat exhaustion and stuff like that. Are there some things you could remember that you're like, oh yeah, there's no way that would fly today?
Oh, you just touched on it. Heat exhaustion. We didn't even have monitors.
That's your own coach saying, hey, you better not be giving away our dirty laundry.
Exactly. Now in today's era, they're have like a thermometer vests to let you know when you're being overheated and things that I know how high is the humidity. When I was in high school, we didn't check the weather report. It didn't matter. We're going out there and we're going to practice. Whether it's hot, whether it's rainy, doesn't matter. The only thing that's going to stop us from practicing is lightning. And I used to quote my high school football coach by the name of Tom Montgomery. I used to quote him all the time. And he used to tell us it doesn't rain on the football field. It doesn't snow on the football field. It's never too hot on the football field. And when I became a head coach and I was coaching in high school, I used to talk to my kids, it doesn't rain on the football field. We're going to practice in this raining, coach. We're going outside. Of course we're going outside. It doesn't rain on the football field. So when I got into pros, I would repeat that. And the kid, what do you mean? It's raining out there. We got to, okay, it doesn't rain. It's raining around the field. It doesn't rain on the football field. And so, so really it's one of those mental games. It's mind over matter. It's wet, adjust. It's cold, adjust. Prepare yourself. And if it's hot, prepare yourself. And so that's a part of getting your mind right for what you're about to do. So I never felt that it rained on the football field when I was out there. I never felt it was too cold because it's a bigger job than what the weather's like.
We had a coach, and it's funny you're talking about the sayings that your coach had. So, but your coach's saying meant something. Our coach would say random things that made no sense, and we eventually would say, "What does that even mean?" It's not rain until the dogs dried off. But he would make up something, and eventually he wanted us to ask, what does that even mean? He would just make up stuff. So my friends and I, every time we're together, we'll just make up, well, you know what they say, the table doesn't wipe itself off till you spill a drink on it or something. It doesn't make any sense. Nothing makes sense about but I just started dying laughing because you at least had wisdom on you. We just had a coach that would just make stuff up just to make you think or whatever.
It was like, okay.
It was all jokes.
It had nothing to do with the sport that you're playing, but
So there you go. Willie Hayden, by the way, says good afternoon because he's watching you live on Facebook and YouTube. So shout out to Willie.
Hey, Willie.
So I now return you back to the Keith Byars Show.
No problem. Hey, feel free to jump in at any time. But this is a local show. I like to talk about things, that are happening, locally, to you. I mean, and that's what the bond, that you build over the years. You've heard me say on this show before, when I get asked questions from different people from my past, whether I knew you in high school or I met you in college or we became, friends in the pros, and some of my local friends here in Dayton, they ask me all the time, which level was better? And I said, no, it's no better. That's not the right word. The bonds that you make in high school, you with your guys, some of you been knowing since kindergarten, y'all local, y'all live in the same neighborhood, or, definitely from the same city. And you enjoy that. That's special. Then you leave and go away to college for 4 years or 3 years or whatever it is these days. And you meet guys from around the country, from different parts of Ohio, different states. And you guys bond during your 4 years in college. And it's like you've known each other, a lifetime. And in reality, you've only known each other 6 months, 2 months, 3 months, a year, 2 years, et cetera. And then you leave that institution and then you go and play professionally against the guys you played against in college or you heard about in college. And y'all come from all these different colleges and you create a bond there on a professional level. But there's 3 different phases of your life that are separate and distinct from each other, but they're all special in their own right, and none is greater than the other. And, I'm fortunate to have been able to play on all 3 of those levels, but the bond and the family and the friends that I've met over that time period is priceless, and there's 3 different areas. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Nashville, Tennessee, playing in Eddie George's golf tournament. And I ran into one of my teammates from the Philadelphia Eagles. We got drafted. We was in the same draft class in 1986. And my wife, Monica, she had never met this particular guy. And I said, "Oh, look, that's Clyde." She's like, "Who's Clyde?" I said, "Oh, that's my old boys. We're like, brother, we're tight." I said, I mentioned Clyde to you before, but you've never met him. Let me go introduce you. I introduced her, and it was like me and Clyde. We just sit there and hugged it out, act like we just saw each other yesterday, and we just sat there and just picked up the spot. I said, "That's when." She's like, you guys really are close like that. I said, honey, we are. I mean, even though we don't talk each other every day, don't see each other every day, but when we talk, we get it because we shared a bond through these 2-a-day practices. And, we went through some stuff together. Similar to people that's in the military, have been to war and all that stuff. And I'm no way equating football with the military as far as war. It's not what I'm saying. But the bonds and the football battles and stuff that we have been through, that's something that would connect you all together, and it's going to connect you for the rest of your lives. And she's like, wow. Then I went back and showed her some old pictures of me and him. She's like, you guys do it back. I said, yeah. So that's what I want to say. So I'm going to talk some more about that, but I was mentioning the Olympics is over. How did the Olympics go for you? Did you enjoy it? Did you have a good time? What was your biggest moment from the Olympics? What was your least moment from the Olympics? So I'll answer that first. The least moment that really ticked me off the most after watching the Olympics was in track and field. And the men's 4x1 relay does not qualify for the final. Our track and field team, we haven't won a medal. We haven't won a gold medal in track in the 4x1 in over 20 years. It is ridiculous. We cannot, come together. We didn't drop the stick, the baton like we normally do. There is no cohesiveness on that, cohesiveness on our relay teams. And I get track is an individual sport, and you have to come together and create some kind of bond as a team. That's where the head coach comes in. And I watched the Jamaican women 4x1 relay team. They won the gold medal over our women. Our women took silver. Shout out to for the silver medal. But they hadn't practiced. They didn't use that excuse, but they came together, said, guys, let's get together, get this stick around, and let's go win. And American men 4x1 relay, it's almost like they're too cool for school. They're all in their own world, but this is a team event. And right now, y'all got to come together as bond and check your ego, and let's go. And we got our doors blowed off. That's what we used to say in high school when you get beat bad. So you got your doors blowed off, man. We got 6th place in a 9-race heat, and they only taking the top 2 in times. The top 3 in times. And when you finish 6, you're out. And we didn't even make the 4x1 final. So I can't wait for 2024, to see how we adjust that. It's been far too long. So that was my low light. My high point. Wow, what was my highlight of the Olympics? It was so many. I love to see the men win the USA basketball. They took a lot of flack to come back and win a gold medal. The women's basketball winning the gold medal. Shout out to all the swimmers, because I swim every 4 years during the Olympics, so I can't swim in real life. Caleb Driscoll. Hey, man, you were swimming for me. I was taking the strokes with you, shadow stroking while you were swimming. Katie Ledecky, so all those sports. Simone Biles, she didn't win a gold medal, but she won a bronze medal in the beam, silver medal in the team overall, and a gold medal in the hearts and minds of helping make awareness to mental health. That is something that's really going to come out of these Olympics. And it's really, important to me. Also, I think that I've always said, especially in the Black community, mental health is something very, underrated and overlooked. And mental health in society overall is overlooked. But it's sometimes, and I think what Simone Biles came out and did is the beginning of making it okay to talk about mental health, in the Black community. And I think Meta World Peace, he's one of the early trailblazers of it, talking about his mental health when he was with the Indiana Pacers and, of course, with the Los Angeles Lakers winning the championship. Gave him the platform to talk about that. But mental health overall in the United States, I think it needs to be more awareness on it, a light needs to be shown bright on it. And I hate to even bring this out of my mouth, to even give it any life. but I'll say it for informational purposes. It's like when we're faced with these mass shooters, and they're sitting there killing innocent victims, and automatically when the first thing, oh, what was his mental health life? And I get that, but it's not so simple. I mean, nobody should have that much weaponry. We just had the Oregon shooting anniversary. Was that 2 years ago now, Justin? It's been 2 years since Oregon District. I mean, yes, that person has some mental health issues, but I don't want that to be confused in any other way with other mental health issues that have been dealing with as far as Simone Biles and Meta War Peace, Coco Gauff said, I just read this morning, a famous tennis player having problems with her second serve. So it's been numerous cases, but Simone Biles is really putting a big spotlight on that. And I think that's a really, really good thing, to happen. And it should be okay to talk about it. It's like if I sprain my ankle or even broke my ankle, and everybody's like, hey, man, what are you doing those crutches for? I broke my ankle last night, so I got crutches on. Oh, okay, you went to the doctor. Okay, that's something on the outside that we can see. I'm not with someone has a broken ankle. But if they went to the mental health professional and talk down with the psychiatrist or whomever that's going to help them with their mental health. Hey, man, where you been? Where was you at yesterday? Oh, man, I was at the doctor's office. Oh, what's wrong with you physically? I had to, that's some mental health issues. Oh, and it's almost like an unwritten and unsaid stigma. We have to get past that and be like, oh, okay, good. I'm glad you went. So that needs to be embraced by everyone in society, because I think I put this on my social media. Mental health is just as important as physical health. They all work hand in hand. I mean, it's just physically you can see it. Mentally, it's inward. But nevertheless, we have to address it and go on. So feel free to call me. With any of your Olympic highlights. We'll talk more about it after break, but let me give you that number again. That's 937-518-1410 You're listening to the Keith Byars radio show presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken.
Real quick, I want to jump in. You have a question that just came in on the live feed before we hit this.
Okay, I'll answer real quick.
Nick on Facebook wants to know, and let me make sure people can actually read this. He said the 4x100 is cursed. How do we break that? That's the one that just seems to, no matter how many premier athletes you put in that, they're half the time the favorite. Sometimes that just seems to be a cursed event that still to this day just always seems to, they can't overcome it. How do you break that right there? Because
how do you break it?
Thing, like it kind of, it's like in basketball where you have you miss 10 straight free throws and then it just becomes, now you're trying to, put that to rest, or a field goal kickers. I've missed my last 3. How do I put that to rest? Is that what this is? I mean, what's going on there?
It has to be coached like any other sport. That's one of the ways you have to, and you can't worry about anyone's ego. And you have to put, like Carl Lewis came out last week and called them a bunch of clowns. And he was right to say that. He said, you got guys running in the wrong positions. It's not like, okay, we got just to take the 4 fastest guys. That's a start to have the 4 fastest guys. But do they work together as a unit? And that's where it has to come out. Because just because I'm fast don't mean I'm fast out of the blocks. Just because I'm fast doesn't mean I'm a great finisher on an anchor leg. So you have to put all 4 of those elements together to find out what the formula works. When I ran 4x1 relay and state champion in 1982, the coach was deciding what leg to put me on, the second or the third leg. And so he tried me at it both. So the first leg starts in the curve. So you got to run the curve. So somebody's got to have big, very experienced getting out the blocks because some starters are faster than others. And they got to run that curve. So you're really not even running straight up. And then when you hand it off to the second leg, they're running a back stretch. They're running more of a straight line than a curve. They're starting in the curve, getting the stick, and they're running that back stretch. Then they got to be hand off to the third curve runner that runs the third leg. And he's got to be able to run to the side and without being running upright. Still fast. And then when you give it to that anchor leg has to be somebody that can finish strong. That you got to run and start. And if you're behind 1 or 2 steps, maybe 3, that anchor leg has the ability to go get them. But if he's back by 4 or 5 or 6, paces, I don't care how fast you rank a leg. The other guy, he ain't gonna be able. It's not enough time to make it up in 100. He can make up 1 or 2 steps, maybe 3 in a 100-yard roll and start, but not 5 and 4 and 5. You don't have no chance. So you have to put your 4 best runners in the best position to find out where they be best. So I'm saying, like myself, I ran the second leg better than I did the third leg. So the coach said, no, it's not like you this will help us, our team, get better. Because in those days, before it got popular, you would put your fastest leg on the second leg because he's going to bust it open. Because as long as the first leg can keep the race close, and that second leg, and if you watch the women 4x1 relay, they put the Olympic champion 100 meter, she won the gold this year, a double, Herrera. They put her on 2, and she blew out the U.S. girl on 2. And so by the time they gave her the third leg, she was closing. But then by the time they got her to the fourth leg, the race was over. By the time Gabby Thomas got the stick, she had no shot. And so way back in the 80s, before it became popular, my track coach, Randy Wagner, he recognized that. Because I got to the state meet. I know I got to go to break, but I got to the state meet in 1982. I'm running the second leg of the 4x1 relay. They put the previous year state champion on me. Great sprinter by the name of Joe Banks. Joe Banks won the 100 his junior year. His senior year, he had a few hamstring injuries, and he didn't qualify for the 100. But they put him on me at Columbus Worley High School. Like, surely you can get that football player, Joe. You're a track guy. He even had a scholarship. We was at Ohio State together. And they put him on me. So even though he had some hamstring issues, he's still fast enough to beat Keith Byars at the second leg. Because, Mike McCray is going to hand me the stick. He's from, on the first leg of our 4x1 relay team. Because McCray, he's fast, but he's not going to have that big a lead over the guy from Columbus Worley by the time they hand the stick. So their plan was the Worley guy, they're going to put their state champion on me, and he's going to beat me and hand the ball to the third leg, and then by the time of the fourth leg, the race should be over. But they didn't know I was a beast. I made Joe Banks pull his hamstring because he couldn't believe he couldn't catch me. He was like, wait a minute, I got to turn on some real speed. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm fast too. I'm not as fast as you. We both got the stick at the same time. All things being equal, Joe Banks would have beat me. But I didn't get it. McCray gave me a lead, and my job was to hang on to it. And so I used to tell Mike McCray and everybody on that track team, I didn't want to be the reasons why we lost. It wasn't going to be me. And when I saw him coming out there to the second leg, I'm like, oh, shucks, that's the strategy. Because I know if we get the stick at the same time, he should beat me. But I'm not going to roll over and let him beat me. But McCray gave me a little bit of a lead, and I heard the footsteps. And that was motivation. And the next thing I heard her yell, ah! Put his hamstring. Yeah, but you're listening to Keith Byars Radio Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Hey, go get some chicken. We got some here in the studio, so you got some near you in the car. Just pull over. Go grab you some. See you after the break.
It's the Keith Byars Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, right here on Dayton's home of the Buckeyes, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
Oh, what? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzz driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You can kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says I'm a catch more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You wanted to see me?
Yes, please, have a seat. So here's the thing. When this company brought you on, we took a chance on you. You didn't have that 4-year college degree we typically look for.
Right.
But we gave you a shot anyway. And since then, you've worked incredibly hard and given it your all.
Thanks.
You've been an important asset to the team, but I don't think you can be an intern here anymore. We want to hire you.
You're serious?
Absolutely.
Find your next great employee. Introduce yourself to the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
I won't let you down.
I know.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
Scattered thunderstorms today. We'll get up to a high of 92. Overnight cloudy, some rain, low dropping to 77. Scattered thundershowers on Thursday, and we'll get up to a high of 93. I'm Jim Hughes for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. The IRS just rolled out a new program to help struggling taxpayers more easily resolve their tax problems. It's called the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, and it opens up powerful new options for people looking to get back on the right track with the IRS. And no one knows this program like the professionals at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution company. They've resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients and have the expertise and experience to help you. One easy call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries of wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Make today the beginning of your fresh start with the IRS. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief now for your free confidential consultation.
Call 800-709-7022. 800-709-7022. 800-709-7022.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
There's something special about a sit-down family meal together. At Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, we couldn't agree more. That's why we're making it easy with our 8-piece family meal for only $22.99. Enjoy a classic family meal without the hassle. It includes 8 mixed pieces of Famous Recipe Chicken, 2 large sides, and 4 fluffy biscuits. At Lee's, making your family's meal special is what we do best. Get a home-style meal made easy with our 8-piece family meal for only $22.99. Only at Lee's. Famous for chicken.
Cordell Transportation is now hiring Class A CDL drivers. $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily dedicated lanes, no-touch freight. Apply today at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
Whoa, long time no see. It's me, the Rock t-shirt in the back of your closet. Dude, remember? You crowd surfed in me, man. But you haven't worn me in like forever. I get it, you're retired, but I still got some rock left in me. So take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff, create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
He's a former Buckeyes great and now a college football Hall of Famer.
Look at him go! He simply runs out of his shoe. He's running so fast.
And don't forget about his 13 years of NFL experience playing for the Eagles, Dolphins, Jets, and the New England Patriots.
Watch for the great block by Keith Byars on Pepper Johnson. Bam! Right there. Byars just nailed it.
He's Dayton's own Keith Byars. It's the Keith Byars Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken on Dayton's home of the Ohio State Buckeyes, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Welcome back. Listen to the Keith Byars Radio Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Phone number to call is 937-518-1410. You know, in that promo we just played, they had me hitting Pepper Johnson. I got to tell y'all a quick story about Pepper Johnson. And, you know, it's like earlier in the show, I was talking about the bond that you have with your teammates doing these two-a-day practices and how special, you know, that is. You don't necessarily realize it always, you know, at the time, because it's no fun going out there banging heads twice a day. But that's just one of the necessary evils of the sport. And Pepper Johnson was my roommate for 4 years at Ohio State, and we truly are brothers. We just don't have the same parents, but if it can't be nothing, no bond that connect us even more. So we're just brothers with different parents. But one of the bond, our main reason why one of the things that helped us bond when we met each other, Pepper's originally from Detroit, I'm from Dayton. They said, "Oh, you got these two inner city guys gonna be roommates. Both names start with a D, Dayton and Detroit guys." All right. And we hardly got any sleep, you know, probably the first, I'm going to say the first month of being at Ohio State, because we would push each other hard in practice, and we would talk about not just football, we would talk about life. You know, it was like we just met at the spring game that previous summer, that previous spring. And we communicated a few times, and of course, you know, over the summer. But hey, we're gonna be roommates. What are you gonna bring to the dorm? You got a television? I got a mini fridge, and you know, little conversation like that. But once we got to Ohio State, and we started talking to each other, you know, that's what roommates do. I would hope, if you like your roommate, you know, that's how you bond. Whether or not you're gonna have a good roommate or a bad roommate. And you know, your freshman year, you know, the football coaches determines who your roommate's going to be. They just they're the ones that went out and did all the recruiting, and they figured, you know, these two personalities should bond. And after the first year, you can switch roommates or whatever, maybe even after the first 6 months, because hey, I'm not working well with this guy. Not that I don't like him, we just can't live together. And my freshman year, everybody changed roommates over the course of our freshman year, especially in 2 years. Everybody changed roommates. Not that there was any hate, they just got along better with a different guy or another guy, except for me and Pepper. It's like we were the same roommates all 4 years. Even once we moved off campus, we had our own apartments. But when we was on the road, we're gonna be the same roommates. But some of those the conversations that we had our first month, you know, together doing training camp and being at Ohio State, you know, the bond that we shared about what are your goals in life? What do you want to do? And we both made each other a promise that we've, you know, kept to this day. If I'm somewhere, you know, or doing something that you know I'm not supposed to be doing, I'm in the back, come get me. You know, pull me out, fight me, whatever you got to do to get me out of that situation. You know, because I should, you know, you want the best for me, I want the best for you, and we want the best for each other, and we got to be there for each other. I got to be able to count on you. And that's how we lived our lives, you know, ever since. There's so many other stories, but reason why I have Pepper's name down here also, even not just because he was in a promo, I have a segment I was just going to talk about, just a throwback Ohio State player, just periodically. Like last week, I talked about Paul Warfield, somebody who I felt was, quoting, how can you be underrated when you're a Hall of Famer, college football Hall of Famer, pro football Hall of Famer, you know, first team All-American. But the only way I said underrated or overlooked, because time has a way of diminishing not necessarily diminishing, but people have a tendency to remember the last couple of things they saw, what happened this year, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And, they just have a tendency to forget. Somebody sent me, I get text messages all the time, the Mount Rushmore of Ohio State wide receivers, who's, and they didn't have Ted Ginn's name on there. They didn't even mention it. It was like, no, it wasn't even Mount Rushmore. They're like the baddest receivers ever played at Ohio State. And Chris Carter, David Boston, I can't even remember the other two, but Ted Ginn's name wasn't even, Michael Thomas' name wasn't even mentioned. I think they said Chris Olave would be one of them. And I was like, I hate sometimes we always in a hurry to make a list, especially about college players. And, you always end up missing out on somebody. Ted Ginn, just retired from the NFL this summer, but he would certainly be, I ain't going to say he was the best wide receiver ever to play at Ohio State. And I don't even know who that mantle goes to, if I'm being 100% honest. And it doesn't even have to go to anyone, but Ted Ginn would certainly be one of the top 10 players to play wide receiver at Ohio State. Certainly probably if you want to make your own category up as far as to say the top returner, punt returner, kickoff returner, I think that starts and ends at Ted Ginn. So, and beauty, when you go to a school like Ohio State, is so many great players, so many eras of Ohio State football. It's useless and senseless to make a list on who is the greatest this and the greatest that. Just like we have a number of greats in football, a numerous. So, and I don't even think you need to even. What's the purpose of even having one guy stand out above everyone else? It's just that doesn't really matter. Because I think that's more of a divisive conversation than a conversation that would bring in unity amongst us. Because now you have guys wanting to bicker and nitpick and all that stuff, and we don't have to do that. We can let enough other folks do that, but it should never come from within the brotherhood. And that when sometimes I go to these different golf events, and one thing that Ohio State, has over others is that there is a brotherhood. No matter when you played at Ohio State, that's something that's a bond that you share and you come together with. Usually back in March, Archie Griffin, he didn't have it this year, he has a golf tournament. And we sit around and we laugh and joke, and we sit up and, and talk sports and play some cards, play a little poker. But you can have me from the 80s, Eddie George from the 90s, Mike Doss, Will Allen, that played in the 2000s, and even some of the players that played in the 2010s. We have 4 decades and 5 decades of football players all sitting around the same campfire, laughing and joking about whatever the topic is of the day. And a lot of other colleges can't have that. They don't do that. And they don't even share. And so that's another reason why, they disparage and they hate Ohio State. I mean, like Joey Galloway, when we go to Archie Griffin's tournament every year, Joey Galloway won't even hardly let me go to bed because he just wants to beat me in cards so bad. He's like, KB, don't even think about it. Know this dinner's running late, but when we get back, back into the colleges, hey, we playing cards. You just know it. And Archie's, his tournament starts about 8:30 in the morning. If we get to bed before 4:30, it was an early night. Because we're gonna be up laughing and joking, and that is a bond, that we have, and we look forward to, going, to the golf event and having fun and laughing and joking. But this is a laughing and joking matter. Now, this is some quick NBA news. I would be remiss if I end the show and if I didn't talk about this. Dennis Schroeder, you guys is all over the internet and all that stuff. He was, former Los Angeles Laker. During the season, Back in March, the Los Angeles Lakers offered him a 4-year, $84 million contract, an extension. They wanted to keep him. And Dennis Schroeder said no. And I was like, who he think he is? And then by the time the playoffs started, I asked Justin Kenner, the producer of the show, I said, Justin, this guy turned down $84 million contract. How many teams that made the playoffs this year can he start for? And I'm not talking about the teams that didn't make the playoffs. These are teams that made the playoffs. And I could only think of the New York Knicks. The only team, he can't go to Atlanta and start. I mean, even me and Ben Simmons aren't on speaking terms right now, but he couldn't come to Philadelphia and start. He couldn't start for the Milwaukee Bucks. He couldn't start for the Phoenix Suns. The list goes on and on and on. So he turned down $84 million. And now he's only been offered a 1-year contract from the Boston Celtics for a whopping total of 1 year, $5.8 million. He was holding out for $100 million. That's why he didn't sign with the Lakers. Who represents this guy? I mean, come on, man. Talking about this is going. I don't care. He's not going to be the MVP next year. It's not like he can make that money up. And I don't talk about money a lot on this show, hardly ever. But when you see a boneheaded decision that Dennis Schroeder made, I don't even know Dennis, so I'm not necessarily. It's not. I'm just, but I'm not calling him a bonehead. Personally, I'm talking about the decision he made was boneheaded. Who turns down that kind of money? Who does that? You left $79 million on the table, young man. You're never going to get that back. So mark that down as one of the stupidest things you did and that happened in 2021 in the athletic world. That will go down as one of I'm had to make a note of that at the end of the year. What were some of the stupidest things that happened in the athletic world in 2021? Hey, Dennis Schroeder said, I don't want to play for 4 years, $84 million guaranteed. Give me the 1 year for 5.8. That's what I want. Like Arsenio Hall used to have in this comment show, things that make you say, So this is one of those things that make you say, Well, next week when I start, I'm going to start my preview of the NFL season and what teams, to look out for and what to look forward to. And as the season, gets on, we're in the countdown to week 1 of the NFL season. But guess what happens this weekend? We have a full slate of preseason games. Cincinnati Bengals play on Saturday. I didn't say Joe Burrows is going to play, but you probably see Joe Burrows walking on the sidelines. I doubt seriously he play. If I know better, he won't play. But Joe Burrows and the Cincinnati Bengals play, the Cleveland Browns play. So you're finally going to, you sorry wives, you're about to lose your husband. You're about to be a football widow. But you got him for a few more weeks this summer. You got him for a few more weeks. But you've been listening to the Keith Byars radio show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. I'll be back next week. See you in the meantime. Get out and do random acts of kindness for your fellow man. Whatever that is, you know what a random act is. So go out there and be nice.
WING 1410 Dayton.